This is the Jeff McLeod Show, where we talk about God, America, the things that make our country great, and so much more. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Jeff McLeod Show. We're going to be discussing a variety of topics, such as President Obama all of a sudden becoming a champion for free speech, and Erika Kirk being appointed as the CEO of Turning Point USA. Let's begin. So today, Barack Obama said that freedom of speech must be protected, whether it was for Charlie Kirk or Jimmy Kimmel. That statement by itself, I full-heartedly agree with, right? Charlie Kirk should not have been assassinated for his own train of thought and for freedom of speech. And I also, unlike most conservatives believe, Jimmy Kimmel should not have been fired for or suspended indefinitely for saying some stupid things. Now, ultimately, I understand that's up to the company. They can decide whether they want to keep a person on air or not, and they all have standards. But I would find it hard-pressed for any of these liberal organizations or liberal media members to genuinely care about what a liberal comedian has to say. They really don't care. They're just scared, I believe, about the Trump administration, and they're scared they're going to face backlash. So Jimmy Kimmel is on an indefinite leave, and I've heard he's fuming from just sources and reports. So I will say, though, I agree with Barack Obama that Jimmy Kimmel should not have been canceled, and he should not be out of his show indefinitely because he said something that I obviously think was very stupid, claiming that Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robinson, is actually part of MAGA. That makes absolutely no sense. He was raised as part of MAGA, as I mentioned already, from a conservative household, but he's clearly, as his mother said, become more and more left-leaning and more radicalized over the last year. So I think it's crazy, but do I think Jimmy Kimmel should have a job still? Sure, absolutely. And I believe the way that somebody should actually lose a job most of the time, not always, is actually, especially for news media members, is through people boycotting them. If people boycott them and their ratings plummet, then all of a sudden the network's not making money. So eventually the person will lose prime time, and eventually they might be having a show in the middle of the night if they lose enough ratings. So that could have happened if whoever is in charge there decided to let it fester. They could have seen what actually happened. And my hunch would be that there would be plenty of liberal people that would still watch Jimmy Kimmel, and a few conservatives would boycott it, but not many conservatives are watching anyway. So I think they're more facing pressure from the Trump administration. Next, going back to Barack Obama, I found it quite ironic that all of a sudden Barack Obama is the champion for free speech, when during his entire presidency, he was not whatsoever. In fact, he brought to the forefront the Espionage Act of 1917. And most of us should know who was president in 1917. It was Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, who went against his political opponents. Woodrow Wilson, who basically his entire second campaign was, we're not going to go to war. Woodrow Wilson, who was an adamant racist. Woodrow Wilson, who was basically like Joe Biden the last 2 years of his presidency. He suffered a stroke, and the first lady basically was the president, the de facto president. So Barack Obama associates himself with Woodrow Wilson by what he did during his presidency. The Espionage Act of 1917 was created during a wartime, right? It was during World War I, and it was created so that the president could silence opponents, people that spoke out against the war, people, maybe magazines within the United States that were anti-war, and you could face imprisonment or a very extensive fine. And the imprisonment wasn't a short sentence, by the way. It was about 20 years or so. And during the Obama administration, he used the Espionage Act again. They weren't at war, but this law never came off the books. And there were many people that I believe their freedom of speech was violated. So Edward Snowden, his free speech was violated. Many of you remember Julian Assange. He was big in the 2016 election and releasing some of Hillary Clinton's private emails, and he's partially responsible why Donald Trump won in 2016. So those two different people, Barack Obama and his administration went after. In fact, the Obama administration used and utilized the Espionage Act more than any other presidency combined. So this man who utilized the Espionage Act to silence people who disagree with him, because if this was utilized, they could face serious jail time or a serious fine. So Barack Obama all of a sudden is saying, "Oh, we need to tone down. We need to stop going against people who disagree with us. We need to allow freedom of speech." It's phony baloney because he never allowed it when he was president. And obviously, I'm a major proponent of free speech, and I believe that's what girds America. Without it, America would fall apart. However, Barack Obama is not the champion of free speech. And I'd also like to say at this moment right now, I don't believe President Trump is doing the greatest job with the free speech aspect of things. So I would not be targeting news organizations or people that expressed happiness in Charlie Kirk's murder. They're allowed to do that. That's their freedom of speech. You just got to ignore them and let them be dirtbags and move on. So there were also, during the Obama administration, journalists were surveilled during leak investigation, raising concerns about chilling press freedom. So especially during the Obama administration, you saw the rise in people being anti-conservative with CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, basically all the different news organizations outside of Fox News, and even Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, he's not the most conservative person in the world. So Barack Obama, though, he wanted to silence journalists. That's a violation of freedom of the press, which is an extension of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So Barack Obama certainly should not be talking when he's mentioning freedom of speech. The only reason he is simply because his side is in trouble. And should they be in trouble right now? Not really. There should be backlash that they're calling people fascists and Nazis, but I don't believe there should be a limit of their freedom of speech because they expressed maybe they said something stupid. That's up to them. They're Americans. Many times I say stupid things in the heat of the moment, or maybe because I think my side's losing. And we all do that at times. So it's not right for us to silence them in their freedom of speech simply because we disagree with them. Because it will backfire on us one day. One day, as conservatives, we could have hate speech laws come against us. It could become a law where you can't say anything against transgender individuals, or you can't say anything against homosexuality, or your church has to preach a certain state-type sermon at church because there's a limit in freedom of speech. Someone could just accuse you of something, and all of a sudden, who's supposed to regulate hate speech? Someone could just accuse you of something that you didn't do, and all of a sudden your life's ruined. So I am really against cancel culture, both on the left and on the right, as I mentioned in our previous episode. So campus speech and Title IX guidance. The Department of Education's Dear Colleague letters on sexual harassment and assault were criticized for pushing colleges to adopt broad definitions of harassment that some felt restricted freedom of speech. This is also during the Obama administration. Supporters argued that these policies protected students. Opponents said they discouraged open debate on sensitive issues. So the Obama administration and later on the Biden administration really limited the amount of free speech. We already know the Biden administration was basically arresting people for demonstrating outside of abortion clinics. They would be arrested by bureaucracies, and you would never see them again. They'd be locked away. And that was completely unacceptable. So the left has no room to talk. Traditionally, the right has been the most for freedom of speech, and now the left is having their issues with it, but they've been giving it to us for so long, and it's not right on either side. But Barack Obama is not the person to be championing freedom of speech. There are other people that could be. Ben Shapiro could champion it because he's sort of libertarian. Your libertarians could defend it. But many of your politicians, especially your Democratic ones, have a lot of dirt on them. So it's unacceptable that he's saying, oh, we need to tone everything down. We have to make sure we have freedom of speech when you're no civil rights activist yourself. Handling a protest. During events like Occupy Wall Street, some activists said his administration didn't do enough to protect demonstrators' rights when local authorities cracked down. I would say many of them were violent, many of them were not subservient to the police. They weren't listening, so therefore they were going to face the consequences of their actions. So I do not believe that was a violation of freedom of speech. in regards to Barack Obama's presidency. Now let's move on to Erika Kirk. On a completely side note, today she was appointed as the CEO of Turning Point USA, and there was an announcement that read this. In Ecclesiastes, King Solomon wrote that mankind is to be tested by God. Today we are facing such a test, yet we also know that God has prepared us with everything we need to overcome this ordeal. It was the honor of our lives to serve as board members of Charlie's side. Charlie prepared all of us for a moment like this one. He worked tirelessly to ensure Turning Point USA was built to survive even the greatest test. And now it is our greatest pride to announce Erika Kirk as the new CEO and chair of the board for Turning Point USA. All of us at Turning Point USA have a special role in carrying Charlie Kirk's mantle and completing his vision of bringing us all closer to our Lord and fostering a prosperous country for generations to come. As Charlie always said, we have a country to save. We will not surrender or kneel before evil. We will carry on. The attempt to destroy Charlie's work will become our chance to make it more powerful and enduring than ever before. Amen to that. And those of us that love Charlie Kirk and we're just going to continue to live his legacy, even those of us that maybe aren't on the Turning Point USA board, I wish, by the way, that Turning Point had more involvement maybe for young adults that are past college age, because I believe we still have a lot to offer. And I have plans coming in the future concerning politics and more conservative action groups in the Northeast. And it's going to be exciting. I'm going to announce it as soon as we're able to grow this movement. And many of you will probably see this in a few months from now or maybe a couple years from now, and you'll be able to look back at this and think, man, this made a difference. And this was all started, I want to say, by Charlie, and the amount that he motivated me and influenced me, and just seeing all the different people during his death come out in his support was touching, and it's moving. And there's never going to be another Charlie Kirk, but we can all do our part so that we can influence our country. Well, another amazing thing was today, Turning Point USA announced that there are 62,000 new signups for either starting a chapter or becoming involved with one. The Turning Point USA chapters are basically these groups and political activist groups in different colleges. So there are some in many different colleges across the country and many high schools, and it's only going to grow. So I believe there was something like 2,500 chapters when Charlie Kirk died, and now there's 62,000 applicants, which is incredible. And I'm looking forward to America having a revival and America going back to Christian conservative values. And it starts with us. It's time for our generation to lift up where Charlie Kirk left off, and for us to take that torch, to take that banner and run across the finish line. And next year is a momentous occasion for our country. It's our 250th anniversary. I'm looking forward to it. I might not see our 300th anniversary because I'll be an old man, but I want to do all I can leading up to this next year for us to be able to get conservatives in Congress, for us to win state and local elections, for more young people to run, for us to be able to push these neoconservatives, these people who aren't really conservative, out of their seats, so that we can get true conservatives and people that have good values, Christian values, into public office. And I'd really like to see that, and I know Charlie would like to see that across the country. And I'm sure once it happens, he'll be smiling down from heaven at us. Let's talk a little bit more about Erika Kirk, because I don't believe she's talked about much. She hosted a podcast, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't ever really listened to it, but just her announcement 2 days after Charlie died on the Charlie Kirk show, it just showed how well she spoke and how motivational it was. I don't know about you, but I was stirred to action. And I was also I had some tears in my eyes about a mother who now all of a sudden is going to have to be a single mother raising 2 children. And I also was motivated as a Christian to make heaven more crowded. So here are her credentials. And it is crazy ironic because she had a husband who hated college. He said that college was a scam. He went on Jubilee. He debated on different college campuses that most degrees were worthless outside of engineering degrees and certain specialty degrees. He said that it was worthless. They were just indoctrination centers, and that humanities and liberal arts could be studied at home, which I would genuinely agree with. However, you do need college degrees for a lot of positions, but I would genuinely agree. Most of liberal arts is learning personally and reading and becoming an avid learner. But it is ironic because Erika Kirk has many degrees. So her husband was anti-college, but she might say she is, but she certainly isn't. She is a double major in political science and international relations from Arizona State University. So she majored with a double major. There's no information when she graduated, but I believe from just calculations and by her age, if she took the normal trajectory of going to college when she was 18, she graduated in 2011 or 2012 because of the double major. It's possible it took her a little longer, but it's not definitive the year she graduated, but we do know she is a double major. So obviously she's into politics. Charlie needed to be married to somebody who he could debate and discuss things with because he was an intellectual just giant and knew so much. So he couldn't be around someone who was boring and not into the things he was into. Secondly, Erika Kirk received her Juris Master in American Legal Studies from Liberty University in 2017. It's widely reported. So she went back to Liberty, where, by the way, Charlie Kirk has an honorary doctorate. And I don't know how you can get an honorary doctorate when you don't have an undergraduate degree, but we're not going to go there. So she received a Juris Master in American Legal Studies. So she has political science degree, an international relations degree. Okay, that's very good with being able to foster relationships with people outside your country. It almost seems like she was built for politics, like she wanted to run at some point for public office and get involved maybe in one of the Senate committees. She then received her legal studies degree from Liberty University. Then she received her doctorate from Liberty University in 2022 in Christian leadership. So this lady is obviously very, very intelligent, and she is basically good in a number of different areas. The only type of degree I don't see here is a math degree, but I see a number of different political degrees that are going to really serve her well as the CEO of Turning Point. We'll see if she goes out and has some discussions on college campuses. I'm going to think she will, just to honor Charlie's legacy, but definitely precautions are going to need to be in place from here on out, and we'll see where she goes from there. She also attended Regis University and played basketball. If you follow her on social media, she doesn't ever, from what I've seen, post any pictures of herself playing basketball, but you see a basketball on the floor in one of her photos on a basketball court, obviously. And Charlie as well enjoyed playing basketball, so they connected over that. So also today, the Senate passed a resolution calling for Charlie Kirk's birthday as a national day of remembrance for public debate and dialogue. I believe his birthday was October 17th. You can fact check me if I'm wrong. I'm going to look that up right now and give you guys an answer. When was Charlie Kirk's birthday? And it should give me an answer soon. October 14th, so I was correct. He was born October 14th, 1993. So there's going to be a day, at least to pass through the Senate, where on October 14th this year, we're going to recognize it as a day for public dialogue and freedom of speech, and what Charlie Kirk really brought to the table, what his values were, what he stood for. So another thing to address today is Hillary Clinton. I'm going to pull up some more notes. Hillary Clinton basically described once again the right as fascist and Nazis. She is a very good friend that came out with a book in the last couple days that she was just sponsoring and promoting, and it specifically calls us fascist. So this isn't helping de-escalate a situation either. One of the most prominent Democrats is coming out supporting a book that identifies conservatives as, I don't know, fascist and Nazis. I think we're beyond even caring at this point. I only care because of our words have value. Our words can cause great things or terrible things, and we need to be accountable for our words. We need freedom of speech, but at the same time, our speech does result in actions. So Hillary Clinton today said, "Congratulations to my friend Wayne Garten on why fascists fear teachers. From banning books to controlling curriculum, authoritarians go after public education because it's a cornerstone of democracy." It's kind of interesting that fascists and communists also manufacture big conspiracies that don't actually happen. For instance, you go back to Maoist China and the Cultural Revolution, that there was some problem with Western culture, therefore it had to be eliminated. You go over to Russia and Russia's Vladimir Lenin. And after Vladimir Lenin died, Joseph Stalin took over. And Joseph Stalin was scared that some of the former communists were going to try to depose him. So he created these, these scenarios where he ended up going out and murdering many Russians. So I'm not saying she wants to murder anybody, but when she's saying that, oh, fascism's such a big problem and Nazism and teachers combat it, I actually think that, number one, you were involved in the Russia collusion hoax. So clearly, communists, they try manufacturing lies and to get the people to believe it. It's done on a more grandiose scale. If you look in North Korea, they lie and they say Kim Jong-un can fly. Kim Jong-un has shot a 17 on a golf course. Like crazy stuff like that. But the left engages in conspiracy theories, and it's even not even a conspiracy theory. It's just conjured up and made up so that they get into power. That's straight out of a Marxist book or a socialist book or a communist book. And I just said a bunch of words that all mean the same thing pretty much. So I'm sick and tired of the left calling us fascist and Nazis when in reality they're taking some of the same things from the playbooks of communists. I hope you enjoyed this episode and this podcast. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd really like to make a difference in the conservative community. And pretty soon I would like to be able to go on college campuses and debate. And we're going to build a movement here in the Northeast specifically and all across the country. And all I have to say is make heaven crowded and long live Charlie Kirk.